Hi, Graham Vincent, violin maker and musician. I'm just going to have a bit of a witter and talk about a few things and people's attitude to the violin, really, as much as anything. So let's start. This kind of came to mind because I occasionally get given violins by people who, find an old family violin they don't want or something. They don't need it, so they give it to me because they know I'm a violin maker, and I think, well, if anyone can use it for something, it's probably going to be Graham. So I get this thing, and I got this one, this violin, a couple of weeks ago, and I thought it was quite interesting. So this saddle design I absolutely love. I mean, most saddles kind of, the end is up, scooped up, flat, scooped down. But this one's got this lovely swell up and down. And then on the other side of it, the flat on this side is sort of got this lovely bridge kind of look to it. There, that shows up fairly well, doesn't it? There we are. So, I put this thing out on one of the Facebook groups saying, oh, I've got this violin, it's quite interesting. What do you all think of it? Any idea? Is this typical of any workshop, any maker, any factory's output? Because I thought it was quite distinctive. And there was a comment from someone, I won't mention any names, there's no point, basically saying that will spread the cord for the tailpiece, and it'll hinder the movement of the tailpiece, which is bad, basically. Therefore, this is bad, and this violin is not of interest. And then several other people sort of joined in with completely different views. Someone came in later on and said, I've got a Hardy violin, Hardy from Edinburgh, end of the 19th century, which has got a very similar saddle. Could it be something, could it be his? I had a look online. I found several examples of his violins with identical saddles. Everything else about this ties in with the quality and so on. I think it's probably his work. He made over 2,000 violins, him and his assistants. He had assistants from his family, made over 2,000 violins. So it's not an unlikely thing that I would have that sort of violin. Everything about it, the varnish and everything, suggests that period of time. To me, it looks like a nicely handmade violin because it's got nice edge work and so on. And it's also got a couple of cracks in the front, a couple of cracks in the back. So I whipped the front off because I wanted to see what the condition was of that crack. I thought it was going to be live, but no, it's been repaired. It's been repaired really well. The internal repairs are pretty good and comprehensive, but not so much attention has been paid to varnishing or covering up on the outside. It's quite interesting. So in fact, I'm just going to leave the internal repairs exactly as they are because they're all good. I'm glad I opened it up because I did find that the end of the bass bar is loose, so I've got to stick that back down. It's a really fine bass bar, and that's obviously been done. It's been someone's choice to select a bass bar that fine. So I'm going to leave it like that and see how that sounds, because it may have been done specifically to make this violin work. But that's not what I wanted to talk about. What I wanted to talk about was the attitude in the first comment, which was, this is wrong, it's no good. And there was no attempt by the person to say, in my opinion. Now, violin making is part craft, part art. And there are some things which are effectively right or wrong, but most things are on a sliding scale. If it's impossible to play it because there's something fundamentally wrong with it, sure, it's wrong. But in most other situations, it's a question of whether you like it or not, whether you approve it or not, but it is only your opinion. And I firmly believe that people should be more open to other opinions which are not the same as theirs. But I mean, this is a really carefully made, handmade violin. It's beautiful inside. I'm really looking forward to actually sort of putting it together and playing it. The neck has been replaced at some stage, but there's a really nicely done scroll graft. So it's got the original scroll on it. There's been a repair to the peg cheeks at some stage. There's bushing on the peg holes. I mean, it's been really well looked after in the past. So it's a fine thing. And all I'm saying is, violin making seems to, or the violin world generally, seems to attract people who think in absolute terms, black and white, and don't understand that there is room for variation. I think maybe, is it because I've come from the sort of the folk end of violin playing, that I'm more open to other people's opinions, more open to variation. I mean, if we're not careful, everyone is just going to be making Stradivarius copies, and that'll be that, and anything that doesn't have exactly the right colour, exactly the right choice of wood, you know, to fit someone's idea of right or wrong, it is just going to be discounted. Whereas, you know, if you've watched this channel, you know I've made violins out of all sorts of things. I've just finished one in bog oak, which is marvellous. It's a beautiful sounding violin. There will be a video about it. So yeah, I mean, that's the end of rant. Sorry, but it does annoy me when people are not open to other ideas, and I don't know. It's almost been exasperated by exasperated. That's the wrong word, isn't it? Exaggerated. I think social media has almost pushed people politically into, you know, very definite camps where they cannot countenance anyone else's opinion, and it seems to be happening in many other areas as well. So this is just a little plea for me to you, just think them, you know, other people's opinions are valid. They may not be the same as yours, and it doesn't matter. And it's just better for all of us that you've got various people trying different things and enjoying different things. It's so much better and healthier to actually be in a situation like that. So yeah, end of that rant. All I can say is this is a fabulous violin. It's been so carefully built. It's lovely. I'm looking forward to putting it together. And it's really interesting, you know, that one person's perception that this wouldn't be any good simply because of they didn't quite like the style choice on the saddle. I find that very strange, but there we go. And this all leads in to a discussion I was having on the violin making discussion group, which is a sort of a Facebook group that I run, that I administer, which is for amateur builders generally, and there are quite a few sort of, you know, lightweight professional builders in there as well, if you like. But we've set it up really as a very supportive, very inclusive kind of group, and there's not a lot of criticism of people's work. There's a lot of and because of that, a lot of people are more open in talking about what they do, and it's a lovely atmosphere. So within that group, there was a discussion about a guy who's built a lovely looking first violin, and he's in a situation where somebody would like to have one of his violins, and he was sort of talking about how much it may or may not be worth. And this was really interesting because, I mean, personally, when I made my first one, I didn't sell it, I kept it. I gave my second one away. And then from the third one onwards, I sold them. I have sold them. And the price has kind of gone up and up. I mean, I think the third one I sold, I think it was about £500 or something. And I was entirely happy to get that. And you know, yeah, it doesn't cover your time or your materials at all. And then a couple of people were saying, you know, I'll read one verbatim here. I want no names, but it illustrates what I was, you know, one of the viewpoints within that discussion. Assuming a quality and correct build, 500 barely covers materials. Even for a student build, a handmade instrument is worth significantly more than that. It would be a trade in her favour, which is up to you, and honestly not a bad trade, but I would encourage you not to undervalue your work. Yeah. Just because you've spent £500 in materials doesn't mean something is worth £500. You can, I mean, basically, there's that very well-worn phrase, you know, something is worth what someone will pay for it. And to start off with, 500 is, you know, maybe the absolute maximum something is worth, even if someone spent a couple of months making something. If it stands up and is comparable with a factory-made violin, which plays as well, sounds as good, looks as good, and which you can buy for £500, then unless you have a particular personal attachment to the story of that violin or the person making it, then it's not really worth much more than the factory-made one. I equally, you see, I mean, I understand that. And if you're going to say you should definitely be charging more, you shouldn't undervalue your work, then the opposite must be true as well. How does someone feel they can justify charging $20,000, £20,000, whatever it might be, for a violin? Because it hasn't taken them that much time to build, for sure. So, you know, what's the justification there? And I refer you to what I just said. It's worth what someone is prepared to pay for it. If someone is prepared to pay £20,000, or more to the point, if a couple of people are happy to, you know, argue about it, and someone pays £20,000 for it, then it's worth £20,000. Personally, I don't charge anywhere close to that. I charge, you know, somewhere in the, it depends what I'm making, somewhere in the region of £2,000 to £4,000, which covers my time, gives me a small profit, makes me happy, and apart from anything else, means that I've almost never got anything in stock because things just go, which is nice. Where am I leading with this discussion? I don't know, really. Don't assume just because you spent a lot of time on something that it's worth a lot of money. You know, it's worth what it's worth, and I actually think it's worth putting your violins into the hands of people who play them, and you'll do far better having, you know, 10 people playing your violins rather than having 10 violins hanging in your shop for sale, because, you know, those people will be playing and enjoying your violins. People will say, oh, that's nice, where did you get that? And they will hear about it, and there's nothing better than word of mouth. This has been such a long and rambling discussion. Anyway, I'm going to draw it to a conclusion there. I hope there was a little snippet of something useful in there. If you're not already subscribed, subscribe. If you're not already subscribed, I very much doubt you got this far. Anyway, look after yourselves. Cheers, folks. Bye.